that. And if you read about cnidarians, there are three major classes in them. But in one of the major class, which is hydrozoa, you'll find this guy by the name of Phacelia. Phacelia originally is not found in tropical water. It's more on the semi-tropical or temperates, like the Atlantics. They are in greater number there. And this Phacelia is commonly known as Portuguese man of war, and is one of the deadliest cnidarian that is found in the sea. So if you are stung by this stinging cell on the tentacles, it can lead to it can lead to actually to death, or we call it mortality. And also inside here in the phylum cnidaria are the true jellyfish. This is in the class of Scyphozoa. There are true jellyfish and there are not really true jellyfish, depending on from at what stage they are in their life developments. And you might see it look like umbrella with the tentacles or something like that, but it's not really true jellyfish. What we call true jellyfish are members of class Scyphozoan in their life cycle. And there are also not only members that are free swimming, able to swim like the jellyfish, or even Phacelia is moving but very slow movement. And some of these members of cnidarian are attached. For example, the sea anemone, or the istilah Dewan Bahasanya adalah buran. So it's also a cnidarian. You can see that maybe you get some hint there. They have tentacles. So the three pictures that I've shown you have a tentacle, and the tentacle is provided with the stinging cell. And this one doesn't have a obvious tentacles. Is a coral polyps. The polyp made up of the coral, the hard calcium carbonate coral that you see here in the picture is actually made up of the tiny coral polyps. And that coral polyps are animals. They are invertebrate. So, but the casing where they are living in, the calcium carbonate, is not living, it's abiotic. So coral polyp live in the case, and as other members of cnidarian, coral polyp also have tentacle, and they do have a stinging cell to some extent. Okay, so what you see in coral polyp is maybe hard calcareous cups or structure like this, but inside it, individually, it made up of coral polyps. So you must have a good understanding of that. What is coral polyp and what is corals? So if you look at these members or the existence of cnidaria, they have been around quite a long time. Even some literature say they are back longer than porifera. That means more than 700 million years ago. In terms of evolutionary perspective, cnidarian are described as the first animals to appear that has a definite shape. So if we look at porifera before, they don't have definite shape. And the group that are not invertebrates, such as the protozoan, some of them, most of them also have not really a definite shape of a true animal. So if we look at other facts about cnidarians, if we look at many of the animals that exist during the pre-existence of advanced animals, as we say in porifera and during the protozoans, cnidarian by the represented by jellyfish, maybe scientists believe that the first animal that are able to swim. So there is a progressive development here on the invertebrates as the first animal that start to be seen swimming are the members of cnidarian, and they are jellyfish. And some members of the cnidarians, especially from the class Scyphozoa, are also considered as zooplankton, because when they are small in the life cycle, they do swim and behave like a zooplankton and feed on by other members of the sea animal. In terms of size, jellyfish is perhaps among the longest of animal. Together with the tentacle, it can form about maybe to this statistic of 9 feet in diameter and about 120 feet of tentacle. Some of the species can grow up to this length. So many of the members of the cnidarian are marine. That means they stay in the sea. Many, like the corals, they are more confined toward the warm, shallow waters because of certain requirement. But however, there are few, like in class hydrozoan, like hydra, they are freshwater inhabitant. This cnidaria, or the old name Coelenterata, contain about 9,000 species, maybe more now, mainly made up of hydra, which is freshwater, jellyfish, that is marine, sea anemone, also marine, and coral polyps. So in terms of body plan, they are radial symmetry. So later on, when we reach the part on what is radial symmetry, you will understand what is the meaning of the term radial symmetry. And most of the cnidarian will have a stinging cell called cnidocyte. So please take note of that. What is cnidocyte? Cnidocyte are the stinging cells that are found on the tentacle of cnidarian. What's the function of cnidocyte or stinging cell? They are used for the capture of prey as well as for their own defense against their predator. As I was saying in the beginning, that most species are found to be marine, but the most standing out hydra, we have seen the picture of hydra before in primary books. They are freshwater species. So we look at this picture. These are members of the representative of cnidarian. The sea anemone are attached to the substrates. The picture here show that this sea anemone grow on the seagrass bed. You can see the seagrass at the background there. And these are the tentacles. They are sessile, so they do move about. And the one that move in the cnidarian that move freely from one place to another by swimming is jellyfish. Okay, so you see that jellyfish can move this by the contraction of muscle that are found on the belt. These are the coral polyps. When it's dark or during the when normally they become active during the nights. When you take a dive or snorkeling during the night, you will see that they start opening their polyps. The polyps start opening their their tentacles coming out, and you can see that that's it, the true characteristic of cnidarian, that is of the polyps generation. And I was saying just now, Phacelia is the most venomous cnidarian. If you've been bitten or you touched by the tentacle of this Phacelia, Portuguese man of war, because the shape Portuguese man of war or the name Portuguese man of war come from the top here, because it seemed like the head worn by the Portuguese soldier during the colonial days. So once to be worried about these members because they have stinging cell. As I said, when we are dealing with cnidarian, the rule of the thumb is not to touch them because you don't know whether they are venomous or they are harmless. Because some of the jellyfish can kill you, or some of jellyfish can inflict a serious inflammation or scar to your leg or something like that if you touch them in the sea. And most venomous jellyfish, true jellyfish, is called bog jellyfish. And this is originally found in Australia, in tropical warm water of Australia, but has been found quite significantly in Malaysian water. They've been studied by USM researcher that they found quite a significant number of bog jellyfish in Malaysian water, in Penang waters. So they do come by, not by swimming, mainly they come through ballast water. Ballast water is the water that been brought out by the vessel to balance the ship from storm and everything. So when they discharge the ballast water, the larvae or the young part of this bog jellyfish are included in it, and they can grow in our tropical environment too. Phacelia again, as the picture, you won't miss it by looking at the top structure of this hydrozoan. Let's go into the general characteristic of phylum Cnidaria. Normally, I would have the tendency to ask this, so you have to remember at least 5 of them in order to answer the subjective question on the characteristic of major phylum characteristic, general characteristic of phylum Cnidaria. To start with, they are majority marine with only few freshwater species. They are metazoan now. You see, they move from the single cell to single cell with independent in porifera, but now they are trying to organize themselves as a full advanced animal. So the beginning of metazoan is really can be seen in this phylum Cnidaria, because they do form tissues now. So when cell aggregate and has a common function, they will form a tissues. Tissue will form the organ at a much higher animal. Okay. Point number 3, very important. The keyword is polymorphism. This phylum is the only phylum that exhibit polymorphism. What is polymorphism? I can ask you on that. What is polymorphism that is found in phylum Cnidaria? In polymorphism, there are 2 main structural types that form in their life development. There is an alternation of generation, and the 2 main important generation are the polyps and medusa. So in their life cycle, you might see this polyp and medusa existing together in one life cycle, one during the young and the other one during the adult stage. Normally, polyps are young for certain group, and medusa would be formed at the later stage. However, there are group also class that is without medusa at all. or medusa is not prominent. So we have to look into that perspective. But however, generally, we have to accept that this phylum is the one that exhibit polymorphism. Poly mean more than one. So the two structures that is of prominent here are the polyps and the medusa. Okay, I hope you understand on that explanation. Number 4, they may be solitary or colonial. They may stay one alone, independent, ataupun they exist in the big colony. Okay? They can be satu-satu ataupun dalam bentuk colony. Number 5, the typical larval form is the planula. Okay? Typical mean lazim. Bentuk larva yang paling lazim sekali is the planula. That means that in many of the life cycle, the larva that first in existence or has the common characteristic with all the members of cnidarian is the production of the planula. Okay. So next point, many members actually have the body plan that is called radial symmetry. And this is quite peculiar to the cnidarians groups of representative. And the other characteristic also, coelentron or gastrovascular cavity is the other name of coelentron. This body cavity is the characteristic of the cnidaria. That means the presence of the coelentron or gastrovascular cavity is the characteristic of phylum cnidaria. The body wall is 3-layered. You see that as we move on, they become metazoan with higher development. We see in porifera there are only 2 layers, the pinacoderma and also the mesohyl. That is not really a proper body layer, but here the body layer become 3-layered, which is same as the advanced animal like us, human being finally. So the beginning of 3 layers animal is found in invertebrates in the group of cnidarian. They possess or they have a nematocyst, which is a stinging cell, the organelle cell that is used for offense and defense. They are found in cnidoblasts, that's called cnidocyte, and many in the epidermis as well as in the layer of gastrodermis. And finally, they can be hermaphrodite, male and female in one body, or they can be also dioecious, separate male and separate female. So there are a few of them there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Please remember any 5. And we look at concept of polymorphism. You see that the presence of 2 major generation there, we call it generation of polyps and generation of medusa. So you see that polyp and medusa have different structure altogether. It may look like medusa, you turn it upside down, but it's not really so. In terms of orientation or life, they are like that. The polyp is attached anyway. It's attached. It developed from larva planula and it attached become polyps. It has a mouth. It has the gastrovascular cavity or coelentron, and it has tentacles surrounding the mouth. Okay. Polyp is asexual. That means how they multiply is asexual. They just grow without any sexual production of sexual gamete. But the sexual form, if they were to do it, is through the production of medusa. So the production of medusa is a characteristic of jellyfish. And medusa does reproduce bisexual. You can see here the division here, asexual and sexual. So medusa will produce egg and sperm. They come together and fertilize, become zygote, and undergo the division of cell and become planula, polyps, and so this is the classic example of polymorphism, the existing of two major generation, which is polyp and medusa. Polyp and medusa has a three-layered body wall too. Look at polyp here. And they are more or less of the same plan. Because if you overturn the medusa into like a polyps with a mouse on the tops, you will see that the structure is quite similar in terms of plan. Okay, this is polyp and this is medusa, but normally medusa is upside down when they swim. I have been mentioning nidocyte. And they produce a stinging cell called nematocyst, nidocyte or dermatocyst. The general term is nematocyst. Why is nematocyst is stinging cell. So there are many of them. If you look at this is the structure of the tentacle, there are batteries of them, of these nematocysts on the found on the epidermis of the tentacle. When I mentioned about coelentron, this is clearly seen in class Entozoa. You have the tentacle, you have the mouse coming in, but inside the cavity inside here is like a cavity of porifera also, but here they undergo more specialization, that the cavity has been divided into septa or partition. So, but still the whole thing is called coelentron. But members of the cnidarian underclass Entozoa have this characteristic of body cavity that is being partitioned or divided into partition, right? So again, this is the nematocyst when it is not discharged. Dan bentuk kapsul dan they're not discharged. But once they are alarmed or something that trigger them, like a predator is coming close to them, the stinging cell on the nephrocele will shoot out the thread here. And the thread will consist of the venom or the toxin that can cause the predator to move away from them, or it may kill the prey in terms of their feeding. Okay. This is the concept of radial symmetry. Remember bilateral symmetry, and that means there's only through the middle one, you divide into two equal half. That is called bilateral symmetry. But radial symmetry is the animal that having this shape, and many cnidarian are having this a shape of a polyp here. So you can divide animal into two equal half by passing through the central axis here. If you look at the line that that used to divide the animal into two equal half, they all pass through the central axis. And this characteristic of dividing of a body into two through the middle axis into two equal half is the concept called radial symmetry. And I mentioned about the planular larva, which is the typical larva that are found or produced by the members of phylum Cnidaria. They look like this under the microscope. If you look at the glass slide, it looks more like that. But if you look into zoom of it, this is scanning electron microscope. We don't have that for the class, but they have a kind of cilia all over the body. So they can swim by the beating of this cilia. Okay. Right. That's introduction of the members of cnidarians. some that are able to swim, some are attached, the presence of the polyp and medusa, and which one is asexual and which one is sexual, and also which one doing the damage. But as I said, many of them are considered as dangerous because they are known to have stinging cell or nematocyst or nidocyst, right? So let's look into the cnidarian and see the classification of the cnidarian from phylum to the three major classes. However, under each class, I did include the order, but this order is not for the exam. Okay, when you are studying for the exam, exclude the order, except maybe few order that is quite major, and you may need to remember that beside the class. But the class, I expect you to remember all the three major classes, right? Excuse me. Okay, three major classes that have been underlined or that comprise under phylum Cnidaria. One of the class is hydrozoan. It's quite common member of the hydrozoa called hydrozoan. You just add the word, the letter N there to say its general term. This is quite common, but in conspicuous form, they can be seen in both polyp and medusa stages. For example, the hydroid colony is the one that they live in colony in some members of hydrozoan. And the colony is formed by the bud that are attached to substrates. And most colonies are being surrounded by a special structure that is hard structure that is covering the body called perisac. Then perisac is made up of chitin. Okay, you don't need to remember that, but just to show you the classification. There are four orders under class hydrozoan. One of it is hydroda, and this is majority of the hydrozoan belong to this order, and they are polyp generation. Siphonophora are the another group of hydrozoans. These are colony of the members that have a large swimming belt, and the example of Siphonophora is the Physalia, the Portuguese man of war. Okay, the most deadliest stinging cnidarian under class Hydrozoa or the Siphonophora. And there are another order called Meliporina, where this is of the genus Melipora. As I said, you don't have to study by heart of the order. It's just on the merely to provide you information that it might be useful one day to you if you are to major into this group. The fourth one is order Stylosterina, and this is the order represented by Stelesta, which is a colonial hydrozoan also with calcareous skeleton, perisac, and however, Medusa is absent here in the order of Stylosterina. Hydra, as you see the picture, Hydra is like that. You can see Hydra undergoing budding normally. They reproduce by forming a bud, asexual. And Portuguese man of war is also under this hydrozoan. And the other one that you see is Millipora. This is called fire coral. Why is called fire coral? Because if you touch them, you will have a deep stinging effect of the Millipora. So stay away from fire coral or Millipora if you were to be a diver going down into the sea, under the water. Class Scyphozoa. Here in Scyphozoan, you see before Hydrozoan that polyp and medusa is prominent, but in Scyphozoa, medusa stage is the most dominant. Okay, in class Scyphozoa, medusa stage is the most dominant, and mostly they are represented by members that is free swimming. There are 5 orders here with the characteristic shown. As I said, no need to remember for the order, only for information. And if you are interested to look at it in greater detail, for example, there are 5 orders: Sauromedusae, Cubomedusae, Coronate, Semostomi, and also Rhizostomi. So these are count normally on the shape of the bell of the medusae, and also whether they are having a lot of tentacle or without tentacles on their bell. And some of them are attached and not free swimming. So this is the characteristic of the Scyphozoan. What I want you to only to remember in your notes is the medusa stage is most dominant here, and they are mostly free swimming. That means they move about from one place to another by swimming. The picture for each representative of the 5 orders are given here. Sauromedusae with the representative, they are attached. It's like a plant there. And Cubomedusae is with this kind of structure. Coronate is the one that you see the representative there. Semostomy is like that, and Rhizostomy is the shape is like that. And the third class that I want to introduce is class Entozoa. Members are called Entozoan. Here, the existence can be either solitary or colony. So they can be in one individually or they exist in big colony. With Medusa stage completely absent. So there is a characteristic here that differentiate them from one class to another. So that's why I say I want you to remember on the keyword here. Solitary or colony, medusa completely absent. So dalam kelas Entozoa, there are no medusa stage. These include the sea anemone and coral polyps under this class. Okay, there are 2 big subclasses under here. One is called Octocorallia, and the other one is called Zoantheria. Octocorallians are polyps with 8 mesentery, 8 division partition inside the body, inside the gastrovascular cavity or coelentron, and they also have 8 pinnate tentacles. All are colony. So under this, there are 4 major orders. As a marine biologist, I was trained as a marine biologist in the beginning. We had to remember this. Alcyonaceae, these are soft coral. Cnidaria are the blue coral. Gorgonacea are the gorgonian corals, and Pennatulaceae are the sea pans. So these are members of subclass Autocorallia, class Entozoa. And the Zoantherian of the subclass Zoantheria, these are polyps with more than 8 tentacles. And tentacles are rarely pinnates. Under this order Zoanthidia, which is anemone-like entozoan, no skeleton. Order Actiniaria is sea anemone proper. And order Scleractinia is the order for the stony coral. It's the majority of coral that you see in coral reef ecosystem. They belong to order Scleractinia or calcium, hard coral panggilnya. Stony coral or hard coral. And there are another group of coral under the order Antipteria, which is called black corals. So they are soft coral, they are hard coral, they are on different subclass within the same class, and they are some coral are in their own group of order, like the blue coral, the gorgonian coral, and the black coral. So these are the division of the key dichotomous key to the members of the cnidarian. I don't expect you to remember this, but it's general knowledge that in case you want to see how they are being divided from the big cnidarian, phylum into 3 major classes, and from there going down into order and families as well. So this is the other half of it because they are quite big. Soft corals. Soft coral are always in colony in existence. They're not individual, but they live in colony. The polyps that have tentacles on the top here are usually small, found in soft coral. Each polyp has 8 branched tentacles because that's the characteristic of Autocorallia. Soft coral may be soft. That means that they may secrete a hard, horny, or silica skeleton, but not calcium carbonate. Because soft coral doesn't have calcium carbonate cup or cawan di mana polypnya sitting on it. So order Alcyonaceae is the order for soft coral. This is also example of soft coral. If you dive down, they are attached. They don't produce calcium carbonate skeleton, and they live in nutrient-rich water with a good source of light, various shape and colors. They are especially popular among the aquarium hobbies because these soft coral are actually been smuggled out from the marine park in Malaysia. Marine park, you are not able to remove anything from marine park or taman laut, but somehow somebody managed to do it, or they get it from Indonesia or from other countries through the importation process. And they look beautiful if you have it in your aquariums, swaying side to side with the currents, and the polyps, the tentacle can be seen quite nicely inside the aquarium. This is the blue coral under Cynothicalia. It's look bluish in color, and the genus is Heliopora. This is the prominent genus in blue coral. The Gorgonian are more like a plant here. This group consists of members like the sea rod, sea whips, and also sea fan. They are all Gorgonian, belong to order Gorgonacea. They are commonly found in tropical and subtropicals belonging to subclass Autocorellia. And they are branching. One of the major characteristics, they are in branching rod. And they have a spicule. The skeleton consists of calcareous spicule here for support. This is order Pennatulaceae that consists of single member called sea pen. It's found on the sea bottom, normally muddy substrate of the sea bottom, and growing upright like that. The shape is, if you don't know about this, because there is one time they've been circulated in the, it's been viral, and it looked very colorful, and people say all sort of things, but actually they are sea pen. Those who know this shape of animal, they are animal living as benthic at the sea bottom, shaped like a pen during the Renaissance days, and used to be like a pen used by the aristocrat during that time. So they call sea pen or sea pensis. Seldom, the colony is by the branching, but the skeleton have calcareous spicule too, and they are adapted for life on soft sea floors. The other class zoantid or zoantheria. This is a picture of zoantids that you see near to the rocky shores. If you go to Port Dickson and many rocky shores there, if you look at exactly growing on the boulder, on the boulders or on the stone there, are the zoantid. They don't have tentacles, no skeleton, and doesn't show like they are colonials, anemone-like entozoan. That's the description there. No skeleton, that means they are soft. Order Actiniaria or sea anemone, this is important order because in aquaculture you learn about aquarium fish. You culture aquarium fish, and to go along with the aquarium fish, you have a sea anemone as well, if it is marine aquarium. And sea anemone belong to order Actiniaria. Okay? They look like plant, but they are carnivorous. They come in different size and shape, and normally attached with the mouth on the top. So they feed on shrimp, anything that they can catch with their tentacle that have stinging cell. And they don't move about because they are sessile. They attach themselves to rock, and sometimes they bury themselves in the mud. So there are many different picture of sea anemone inside there. And normally you see that the tentacle has, some of them has a bulb tentacle, B-U-L-B. Order Scleractinia, also known as Madreporaria. This is the order for hard coral, I said, stony coral, or stony or hard coral. It's the coral where you had the polyp sit on the a case or the cup of it. So this is the one that is responsible for building up the reef. That we know the reef is the stumbling block for you to reach the island, because the reef tend to be in barrier reef. They don't allow ship to come near to the island because they grow up to the surface, and they are hard. If you have there are many ships that hit the corals, that they grounded there. They are colonial entozoan. Many Scleractinia are colonial. They have calcareous skeleton at the bottom for the polyp to sit on it. And coral polyp normally have a symbiotic algae called zooxanthellae inside the body. And zooxanthellae is actually dinoflagellate. It's a protozoan that photosynthesis, that undergo photosynthesis. But without the zooxanthellae, the coral polyp will die. We'll see later on the symbiotic relationship. The big coral reef is made up of calcium carbonate that been secreted by the coral polyps. The majority of it is the old skeleton that have been built up over a million years. Okay, it takes millions of years to form the terumbu karang or coral reef. This is a important order, an important member, the coral polyps, because they contribute a lot for the formation of the reef. When you have a reef and a coral reef ecosystem, there are many fish that live on it. And they are very important ecosystem that we had to preserve, because that's a place where many fish or invertebrate spawn or reproduce. Okay, coral like this may look like calcareous skeleton to you, but inside of it, they have the polyps. Okay, inside of it, they have the polyps. So they come in different shape and size as well, and colors. Okay, this is more like if you dip down or go down snorkeling or scuba diving. Inside the coral polyps, inside the layers of the cell in the coral polyp, they live zooxanthellae. And zooxanthellae, as I said, is dinoflagellates. And they live symbiosis together. Zooxanthellae need photosynthesis, and coral polyp need to have zooxanthellae as their partners. So because of the requirement of photosynthesis, they are found in shallow waters. That's the reason why coral are found in shallow sea that is clear in water, maybe 20, 30 meters of depths. But this coral with zooxanthellae is called hermatypic coral. That means coral that have zooxanthellae is hematypic. So I can ask you, what is hematypic coral? These are the coral with zooxanthellae, symbiotic zooxanthellae in their tissues. These are different form of corals. Corals are cups. Some are colonies. Some are solitary, depending on which family they are. Like some are like mushrooms. Some like branching coral. Some look like brain or boulder. So they are in different shape and size. To explore this, you need to go down under the water, scuba diving, or as well as snorkeling would be able to see this in its beautiful manner. Order Antipteria is the order for black corals. It's mostly found in deep tropical water, that means quite deep. And not many divers are able to reach this deep end of the water. You have to be professionals and have the capability and the confidence to go deep into it. Unlike stony coral or gorgonins, the Antipteria lack symbiotic algae, so they know the zooxanthellae. Why? You can see that because they live in deep tropical water. No light can reach the deep end of the water, hence zooxanthellae cannot live. So they don't have the zooxanthellae, and meaning that they have to rely on their tentacles for food to catch zooplankton and other things. If you have zooxanthellae, zooxanthellae will provide food for the corals. This is the picture of black coral. It's commercially harvested primarily for jewelry. It's very precious. People willing to pay high price for black coral. Although apart from being for jewelry, it has historical uses, including medicine and also religious artifact. So to summarize the thing, we have three major classes under phylum cnidaria: hydrozoan, scyphozoan, and entozoan. And please remember one of them as the representative. Like in class Hydrozoa, there are Obelia. In Scyphozoa, there is Aurelia. And in Entozoa can be Metridium, which is the sea anemone, or Acropora with the coral polyps. Right, we take a pause here and take a break of 5 minutes. Before that, you have any question of the slide that I shown you from the beginning up to this point? Quiet, no.
Nak tanya,
Yep.
stinging cell tadi Prof kata ada dua cnidaria dengan apa tadi? Yang stinging cell.
Yep. Can you repeat what you want to ask?
Stinging cell ada dua cnidocyte ataupun satu lagi nama tu.
Nematocyst.
Nematocyst. Oh, okay. Thank you, Prof.
Right. They are the same. Right. Any other question? Right. If there's no other question, let you go for 5 minutes for refreshment and things like that. We come back at 9:10. Okay. Come back at 9:10. 10 minutes past 9. Okay, let us continue from where we left. Right, so I'm looking now at the characteristic of the three major classes under cnidaria. To begin with is class Hydrozoa. You may have, no, you may not try to remember this because this is outside the scope of the exam. Only the phylum characteristic is important, but this characteristic that I include in for the class is for easier understanding on the grouping of the three. So for hydrozoa, they are mostly marine, although they are classed with freshwater, which is hydra, you know that. They have alternate generation, that mean they have polyp, they have medusa, but the dominant one is polyps, okay? Dominant one is polyp. They have a stinging cell, nidocyte or nematocyst in the epidermis. Sexual reproduction is by production of the sperm and egg, and these two gametes are released outside the body. Of the three-layer cell, epidermis, mesoglia, and gastrodermis, there are no amoeboid cell in the middle layer. It's called mesoglia. Okay, this is the characteristic of hydra, which is the important animal that is freshwater. Here showing the whole body picture of cnidaria with a three-layered body. As I was saying, that the cnidaria had the beginning of three-layered body cell. The outside layer is called epidermis. The middle layer, very thin one, is called mesoglia. And the inside layer facing the coelentron or gastrovascular cavity is the gastrodermis. Okay, and here is the picture of hydra bud, bud, bud maknanya tunas. They reproduce asexually through the formation of the bud. Jadi hydra mostly through the asexual budding. For hydrozoan that live in colony, they have some differentiation in terms of the formation of the polyps. For hydrozoans life cycle, that is of colonial type, that means they live in colony, the formation of the generation of polyp and medusa occur in both of them occur in the hydrozoan of the colonial, like in this case is in Obelia. And the polyp is structured or been specialized for their own for their own physiological function. For example, polyp that is doing the feeding is called feeding polyps. And polyp that is specialized in reproduction is called reproductive polyps. So they are on the same animal. You see that the polyp structure is very clear, although they live in colony. And here the picture showing perisac or cynosac. This is the calcium carbonate covering of the body wall. And for the buds, for the polyps stage, the picture of this last slide show clearly the mouse, the tentacle, and the coelentron, the body cavity inside there. This is characteristic of the feeding polyps. But for the reproductive polyps, you can see that there are medusa buds that will be formed, and this medusa bud, which is going to be sexual after this, is ready to be liberated out from the polyps. So this is another picture of Obelia. the formation of the reproductive polyp and feeding polyp. Feeding polyp clearly with tentacle and reproductive polyp without any tentacle. Class number 2 is class Kyphozoan. This is a class for true jellyfish. Polyp somehow is absent or reduced. Polyp may be not significant or entirely absent in Scyphozoa. All are marine. They don't have structure called phylum for jellyfish. Mesoglia, that means the middle layer, contain amoeboid cell. Nidocyte or nematocyst is found in gastrodermis and epidermis. And gamete for the sexual reproduction is formed in gastrodermis. No need to remember all these characteristics I said. This is a typical jellyfish that you see. They are bell and underneath it the tentacles. And the tentacle are filled up with the nematocyst or stinging cell. So the mouth is normally found in the center, upside down. You can see the gastrovascular cavity, but in true jellyfish, you find that the mesoglia is thick. Lapisan mesoglianya agak tebal. And because mesoglia ni, they behave like gelatin ataupun structure dia, the structure is characterized like a gelatin. Maknanya dia lembut macam agar tu. So that's why you see in most jellyfish, you see the mesoglia characterize the external morphology of the true jellyfish. Jellyfish ni lembik macam tu saja because of the mesoglia tu dan buatkan dia mempunyai karakteristik tersebut. So this is Aurelia, a common jellyfish that been studied. It's moon jellyfish. On the structure, they have three layered bodies. Wall here, epidermis, mesoglia, and gastrodermis. As I said, mesoglia is thicker in tebal dalam Aurelia. So this show the gastric cavity and also the arms here or tentacle. Tentacle yang bawah ni, yang panjang ni dipanggil sebagai arm for this Aurelia. Ini image dia daripada from the other side of the view. And this is also the picture of true jellyfish, that you can see the bell and you can see the tentacles, as well as the arms that is also has, it aids with the swimming behavior of the tentacle. Characteristic of class Entozoa. This is for the entozoans. Excuse me, I have something. Okay, sorry. We continue on dengan characteristic of class Entozoan. Entozoan, as I said, the two major species are the sea anemone, dipanggil buran, dan juga coral polyps. They are found mainly in tropical marine habitats. Mouth of the polyp is, as usual, surrounded by tentacles that have nematocysts on it. The only thing, as I said, the true characteristic of entozoan, the cylindron or gastrovascular cavity is being partitioned. Dia ada bilik-bilik dia ada septa pembahagi dia. They secrete non-living substances. This meaning here is calcium carbonate. Bawah dia, they secrete the calcium carbonate. This is actually referring to the coral polyps. Okay, sea anemone they tak produce the calcium carbonate tersebut. They reproduce sexually by producing a free swimming larva. That means coral polyps, or selalunya they produce a planula, bisexual, or they can also divide asexually through the process of budding or fission. The body plan is cylindrical with radial symmetry. This is the general characteristic. As I said, you don't have to study by heart on this general characteristic. Okay, this again the picture of the sea anemone and corals in terms of its body structure. They are polyps, they look like polyps. One in the sense that polyp live in the cup in case of coral polyps, where in case of sea anemone, the base of the polyp attached to the substrate. So this is the picture of the sea anemone that you see. So it has a mouth and tentacle and gastrovascular cavity, or the cylindron is clearly seen, and there's a partition there. The partition is the specific characteristic of entozoan, especially the coral polyps and also the sea anemone. And the sea anemone will have basal disc. Basal disc ini yang digunakan untuk dia melekat kepada batu ataupun even in the mud. They do have this form of attachment called basal disc for the sea anemone. For the corals, this is the kind of, I said, the cup. So for each individual like this, inside there is a coral polyps. They during the day they keep it inside there, but during the night they come up together with their tentacles. So kalau yang hidup lah, but this coral might be dead coral. Kalau dead coral, you don't see the coral polyp anymore. You only see the cup of it. Okay, this is kalau dead, I kata there is no coral polyp within this cup. Kalau sekiranya they alive, the cup, the coral polyp will come up for feeding during certain time of the day. Okay, mainly at night because they are nocturnal species. So coral, if you look at coral, the shape of the coral polyps is obvious. Tentacle with mouth, and also the gastrovascular cavity or cylindron, and underneath of it, they secrete calcium carbonate that form like a cup. Okay, this is the cup. This is the cross section. Kalau cupnya duduk macam ni, so they live in this cup of calcium carbonate. That means the body is protected by the calcium carbonate. So the skeleton can grow in mass as it go on. For a million years, it will form the coral reef. Okay, this is the individual unit that form the coral reef, is the coral polyps. And inside the coral polyp, on the tentacle here, you can see there's a mesoglia, and there are nematocysts, and there are zooxanthellae. Zooxanthellae live symbiosis with the coral polyps. And you must remember that the zooxanthellae photosynthesize, they need the sunlight. So that's why corals, most coral species, hard coral, live in shallow tropical waters. And tropical because they need certain temperature. Kalau sekiranya temperature too low, there's no coral. There's no coral in temperate waters. There's no coral in sclerectinia coral in, For example, in the negara-negara yang bersuhu sejuk. Dia cuma in tropical waters. That's why the blessing of tropical weather climates, we have islands that are rich in coral reef. It is another cross-section of the body of the coral polyp, showing the tentacles and also the cup where they live in it, the calcium carbonate. So they keep on producing calcium carbonate all the time. Another picture of it, it's all the same, showing the coral polyps, and actually from one polyp to another, they are joined by this cenosac. Okay, they are joined. That's why they are colony. They are colonial. They are not individual. Yang polyp ni dengan polyp sebelah dia ni is joined. So they live together as a colony. So there are tika, yang cawan yang bawah ni, dan bawahnya dipanggil basal plate. Alright. And this is the one summary that I want you to pay attention to. There are three major classes, which is hydrozoan, scyphozoan, and entozoan. Bagi kelas-kelas hydrozoa, scyphozoa, entozoa. There are differences there that we can use to differentiate these three major classes. The first point is the medusa stage of hydrozoa having the velum. Velum is like a membranous layer, membrane that are found at the bell there. The class Scyphozoa, medusanya without velum. And class Entozoa, as we know, there is no medusa stage at all. Okay? Class Hydrozoan, polyp and medusa are dominant. And dalam Scyphozoa, medusa is dominant. And in Entozoa, polyp stage is formed. Okay? Dari segi alternation of generation, Hydrozoa ada dua-dua, polyp medusa. Dua-duanya agak dominan, walaupun polyp lebih sikit. Scyphozoa, medusanya dominan, polyp absent ataupun reduce. Dalam Entozoa, only polyp stage, dia tak ada medusa. Okay. Point number 3, mesoglia, which is lapisan tengah body wall iaitu, without any cell. Dalam Scyphozoa, mesoglianya ada amoeboid cell. Dalam Entozoa, mesoglianya juga dengan many amoeboid cell. In terms of reproduction sexual, gonad develop within epidermis, gonad develop in endodermis, and gonad develop in endodermis, which is gastrodermis atau endodermis, sama dalam kes ni bagi sexual reproduction. Yang karakteristik kelimanya, the body is covered by exoskeleton or body skeleton. Dalam hydrozoa ada body skeleton made up of calcium carbonates. Dalam Scyphozoa jellyfish, no external body skeleton. Dalam Entozoa coral polyp, dia ada external body skeleton juga. So 5 ni kita boleh jadikan karakteristik untuk membezakan 3 different classes under the phylum cnidaria. The larval form, the typical larval form that we see in cnidaria is planula. It's the first larva that been produced after the hatching of the eggs. Eggs will give rise to planula, which is a ciliated larva that's surrounded by the cilia. Larva has capability of swimming, and after swimming for some time, they will settle down to the substrate and then ready for the life after being settled to the substrate. This is what you see, as I said, under the microscope. Even with during the level 3 microscope that we have in our department, you can't see even up to this stage. This is quite a high resolution picture. We see only small dot. In terms of larva development or metamorphosis, metamorphosis is the word when animal change from one shape to another, mainly during the larval development. It's called metamorphosis. So after swimming for a few hours to a few days, this larva planula will tend to attach, and then when it settles to the substrate, like the hard substrates, they will develop into a shape called polyps, and which is normally polyps is colonial. They seldom be a single polyp, although in some cases, yes. In hydrozoa, the planula remains in the gonophore, which is in the structure of the polyp for reproduction. And inside there, the planula will develop into a larva called actinula. After actinula larva is formed, then only they've been released to the outside. After attachment, this actinula will develop into a polyps. However, in many species of hydrozoan, planula develop into actinula, then only they develop to medusa. So here dalam hydrozoa, kalau kita tengok bentuk larva dia, planula, actinula, and then small medusa. This for hydrozoan. For scyphozoan, which is true jellyfish, after larva planula attach, they become scaphistoma. It's entirely different larva specific to scyphozoan. And they grow into maturity. They produce a free-swimming medusa called Ephira. Okay? Planula, polyps, scaphistoma, Ephira, and then they become the medusa through the process of division called strobilization. Okay, Ephira will develop after strobilization into the adult medusae. So this is the life cycle. This life cycle is important. So this is the life cycle of true jellyfish, Aurelia. You see that's sexually, the medusa will produce a larva because they release egg and sperm. Egg and sperm will merge, will form the embryo and then form the ciliated larva called planula. Planula swim for a little while and settle down on the substrate, become young polyp. Young polyp grow maturity to form scaphistoma. Okay? And from scaphistoma, they undergo division called asexual reproduction. Okay? To form the Ephira. And this reproduction is called strobilization. Okay. Scaphistoma, Ephira. Ephira barulah jadi freeze adult medusae when they grow big. So this is the life cycle of true jellyfish or scyphozoan called Aurelia that been studied vastly in most of the books on invertebrates. So if I could summarize the larval form or larval development for the three major classes, hydrozoan will produce planula, actinula, and polyps. Scyphozoan will produce planula, scaphistoma, Ephira, and medusa. Entozoan, they only have planula to Edwardsia, and some of them produce helicanthoids. So this is unusual. Normally, they go through budding most of the way bagi entozoan. This is hydrozoan berkoloni by the name of obelia yang menunjukkan dia ada specialization kepada polipnya. The polyp has certain specialization. As I mentioned in the beginning, they are feeding polyps. Tugas dia cuma untuk feeding saja. Dia ada tentacle yang ada sengat. Kemudian dia ada reproductive polyp. Daripada reproductive polyp ni lah medusa dihasilkan. So from this reproductive polyp, medusa is being formed and then liberated. Okay, but if you look at the shape of the animal here, it merely look like a plant. And when you do know invertebrates, you will say that this obelia is a plant. No, it's an animal, it's an invertebrates. And the formation of it is a bit orthodox with the calcium carbonates body cuticle that protect and give support to the polyps and the other entire structures of the animal. Adult body form cnidaria mostly all radial symmetry body plan, and they normally have tentacle at the oral end. The body wall is divided into three main ones: epidermis that is outside, mesoglia on the middle, and gastrodermis on the inside. So please remember this: epidermis, mesoglia, and gastrodermis. There are two important morphological features or generation that you see in the life cycle of the adult is the polyps and also medusa. Polyp is sessile. Polyp is attached, shaped like a extended cylinder with aboral end ataupun oral end bahagian the mulut. Aboral end is the opposite of the oral end. Okay, so aboral end attached to the substrate. Oral end supplied with tentacle, and polyp is adapted for benthic. That means they attach to the substrate on the seafloor. Some polyp solitary, while some others are colonial. These again the typical polyp shape that you see even clear in sea anemone. So they are tentacles, they are a mouse, and there's an internal gastrovascular cavity. It's entirely a cavity where the digestion is taking place there. It called coelentron, and the coelentron is being divided into partition. Okay, and the basal disc for the polyp to attach to, and this goes on for true animal like the sea anemone. Opposite the polyps are the medusa. Medusa are free swimmers and they are pelagic. Kalau polyp they are benthic, medusa are pelagic. Pelagic, I mean they are found on the seawater surface. Medusa is shaped like umbrella or a bell. And margin of the bell, keliling bell ni umpama macam payung kita lah. So bahagian ujung payung you tu ada tentacle. Tentacle are formed at the margin of the bell. The main bulk of the bell-shaped medusa is formed by mesoglia. So in medusa, mesoglia is thick, tebal. So that's why it formed the bell shape and is very jelly-like. And that explains why jellyfish feel like jelly, because a lot of mesoglia. Mesoglia is thick. Polyp can give rise to medusa through asexual means. Polyp can give rise to medusa. Polyp can become medusa through asexual reproduction. And medusa can also form polyps through sexual reproduction. So if you look at the cycle, both sides can happen. Polyp start with asexual, will then produce medusa that is sexual. Medusa is sexual, but later on they produce planula yang become polyps. So this involves the production of free-swimming larva called planula. Kalau sexual, mesti ada larva, then that larva is called planula. The phenomena where there is an alternation of generation of sexual and asexual, that means generation of polyp and medusa, is called alternation of generation or metagenesis. So if I ask you what is metagenesis, is the alternation of generation of polyps and medusa in the life cycle of a species of cnidaria. Okay, sikit lagi before we conclude. Class Scyphozoa, as we all know, that only the medusa is prominent. The polyp is not so. This is the class for the true jellyfish. So you can see the shape of the jellyfish in terms of its structure. They are mostly supported by the water. Dia tak ada calcium carbonate dalam ni. But the body is supported by the water. It's called hydrostatic skeleton. Maknanya the water support the body to stay on shape. Otherwise they will collapse. That's why kalau kita nampak jellyfish naik dihanyutkan ke atas pasir, keluar daripada air itu, they collapse because there is no body support. Body support only found when they are in the water. So look at the oral end and also istilah aboral. As I said, aboral is opposite of oral. Sebelah oralnya ni adalah bahagian yang mana ada mulut. Kalau bahagian tak ada mulutnya, kita refer sebagai aboral. Ini untuk radial symmetry animal, banyak yang macam tu. So dia ada tentacles, dia ada nidosid attached to the tentacle dia. Kemudian dia ada ciri velum sini ditunjukkan, lapisan membrane bahagian dalam tu. Dia ada velum. Ada hydrozoan yang tak ada velum kan? Dia no velum. So to end the class today, I just want to compare the characteristic between polyp and medusa. Polyp are attached, medusa are free swimming. Polyp punya attached to the substrate at the aboral end. Medusa, the oral end there facing downward for feeding and so on. Polyp has cylindrical shape with tentacle formed around the mouth. Medusa shaped like an umbrella. Tentacle also form near, but not around the mouth, but near to the margin, at the margin. Saya kata, just think of the medusa as your umbrella. Ujung umbrella tu ada tentacle. Tapi bagi polyp, dia surrounding the mouth. Okay? Polyp has thin layer of mesoglia. Medusa has thick layer of mesoglia. Polyp has a body skeleton. Medusa has no body skeleton. Polyp reproduce sexual and asexual, sometimes both in the life cycle. Whereas a medusa is sexual in most cases, only sometimes asexual. Okay, jadi polyp and medusa ni sexual adalah banyakkannya medusa. Asexual only sometimes. But in polyps, they can be both sexual and sexual can see happening. Kita nampak dalam polyp obelia tadi. Solitary and colony is characteristic of polyps, whereas in medusa, majoritinya adalah solitary. Majoritinya also. So there are 6 characteristics there that we can use to differentiate the structure of polyps and medusa. So I want to end here for this week, and the rest of it we are going to continue next week to finish up the whole thing. not that many. Yep. So maybe we finish on the first half of that. Right. So any question from the floors, from you all about the first half of lecture on cnidaria? Can you digest it? So go to Putra Blast and download the PDF file. Any question? Fizul? Faham semua?
Masih mencuba to digest.
Right. So you are diploma holders, isn't it?
Ya.
So dah ambil dari ni dulu?
Ambil dah.
Okay, right. So just to brush back, my approach might be different from your past lecturers who are teaching invertebrate there. So some of my notes are a bit advanced, and my approach on the practicality of knowledge there is different too. Right? Any other thing? Class? Silent mean understood, or silent mean not sure?
So far so good, Prof.
So far so good. Thank you, Muaz. Right. The others been quiet. Azlin? You're
Yes,
not
Prof.
there? Okay. Can you understand? Right. So kalau tak ada soalan lagi, we see you this afternoon for the practical on virtual practical. There are small practical like 1 hour or 1.5 again. And I will put that on at maybe 1 or 1:30 on the modules to make sure that all will be starting at the same time. And for the briefing, will be short briefing, about 15 minutes. Don't be late. I see that many of you did not really attend the briefing, and as such, what they forwarded is not really what I expect them to do. So the briefing is important to ensure that the instruction is clear. All right, for the last time, is there any more question or no? Tak ada, 35 of you here, and please go to the Putra Blast to record your attendance soon after this. All right, thank you very